This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another terrific video story, and you can see the title on your screen. Cheating girlfriend's father, who hated me, is now begging and offering me money to take her back. And this is a situation I think that's pretty common out there. We've got a father who feels his daughter is dating a guy that's just not up to her standards. He thinks she can do better. But in the end, you'll see he comes crawling back to the OP because he played a role in their breakup. Now, I don't want to give too much away about this story, so let's get right into it. He starts off and he says, several years ago when I was 21, I had been dating a girl for about a year and a half who I will call Anna Maria. I was in love with this girl and thought she was the one. We met by coincidence at the shopping center when she spilled her purse in the parking lot. I helped her chase down and pick up the contents, which took a few minutes. After we were done, she thanked me and asked what she could do to repay me. I took that chance to ask her for her phone number and she gave it to me. Normally, I'm not the type that does those sort of things, but this time I decided to go for it. Good for you. That's what you have to do, guys. If you run into a beautiful woman that you're interested in, you got to take your shot. If you don't, you may never get that chance again. We talked on the phone over the next few evenings and I asked her out, and that's where things started for us. We took things slowly and didn't have relations for 5 months as she was saving herself for the right man and I was looking for a bride. Now, I don't have a problem with a guy saying, hey, I'm out there looking for a bride, but I think sometimes guys get a little bit too desperate in these kind of situations. They try to make it fit or make it work when it really doesn't. And I think that's what occurred in this case, and you'll see as we go on. He says, this is something I respected in her and was thankful I was the first man she eventually gave herself to. I loved this girl and was planning to marry her, but there was one very big problem standing in our way: her father. She lived at home with her parents and her father hated me. The first few times I met him, he seemed nice and we made small talk about sports and weather. Once he found out Anna Maria and I were more than just friends, his personality changed. He first became very short with me and started making snide statements about me behind my back and eventually to my face. Well, that's where you should have said, hey, old man, listen, you're not going to talk down to me. You may not like me, but you're going to respect me. It was obvious he looked down on me and felt his daughter could do better. Back then, I was working in construction as a laborer. Well, you're only 21 years old. It doesn't say here that you had like a college degree, so you're out there hustling. I give you credit for that. He says, I still work for the same company today, but now I'm the crew manager and supervise multiple crew teams throughout the area. Anna Maria's father owns his own service business that has over 40 employees. So Anna Maria's dad is obviously a successful businessman. Looking back, I realize now I should have called him on it as soon as he started treating me poorly. Yes, you should have. But I was respectful as I believed I could change his opinion. I thought he'd eventually see that I'm a good man who had honest intentions about his daughter. This didn't occur, and his criticisms became worse to the point where I eventually stopped going to Anna Maria's house. So I wonder what this guy was doing that was that bad. Instead, I would either pick her up or she would drive over to my place. Now listen to this. Soon after this, her father put a GPS tracker on her car he bought her and forbid her to take it to my place, so I had to pick her up and drop her off if I wanted to see her. So this girl's 20 years old, she's living at home, and I'm taking it she's not working because in this story he doesn't say whether she's employed or not. So I'm thinking she's not, and her dad is, buying her everything and paying for all her expenses. Through all of this, my love for Anna Maria never wavered, though I did get cold feet as I didn't know whether I wanted to marry into that family. We discussed eloping many times, but Anna Maria didn't want to disrespect her father. She told me she would eventually come around, so I went along with our arrangement because I loved her. She didn't want to disrespect her father, but she had no problems disrespecting you. I kept a brave face, but deep down I was very hurt. This man made me feel inferior for the first time in my life, and I wondered if maybe I wasn't good enough. Listen, people, never let anyone talk down to you. If someone talks down to you, it's because you're allowing them to do that. No one is better than anyone else. This motivated me to work even harder at my job and to get ahead. That's good because you should be focusing on your career and improving yourself. You're a young man with a long runway in front of you. Other than this, my relationship with Anna Maria was going well until I started noticing little changes here and there. And here we go with those little changes, and the red flags are about to come out. She didn't want to come over every night like she used to, and there were times when I called or texted her that she didn't answer for several hours. I felt something was off but didn't want to believe it and didn't say anything to her. Again, here's this guy being Mr. Nice Guy when he should have called her out immediately on that. I just assumed it was due to the stress of her having to balance her relationship with me and her relationship with her parents. Her mother really liked me, by the way, but she's the type of woman that will not challenge their husband no matter what he does. She told me many times in confidence that I was a good man and to be patient with her husband as he would come around. As time went on, it seems things between Anna Maria and I were drifting apart. There was even one day where she snapped at me for something completely stupid. That's a big red flag, as all of you guys know. If you've got a girlfriend or a wife and then all of a sudden she's behaving totally abnormally, something is going on. He says, I was so taken up by her statement, I took her straight home. She tried apologizing and didn't want to leave, but I told her she had to, as I would not tolerate disrespect from her. Well, good, my man, that's the first time you stood up in this whole story. I told her I would never disrespect her, and that if she was a disrespectful person like her father, I didn't want any part of her. That night after I dropped her off, she kept trying to reach me, saying she was sorry and wouldn't do it again. I was so mad I didn't respond, which made me even more crazy about the situation. Now I wonder what she told him that was so bad. The following day I ignored her attempts to contact me and didn't go to pick her up as we had planned. I wanted her to understand I was serious and would not tolerate her behavior, as no one deserved to be talked to like she talked to me the previous evening. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Anna Maria's first cousin, who I'm going to call Agatha. I'm calling her this as she is just a terrible person. She's jealous of everybody and a real troublemaker in her family and in her friend group. She's morbidly obese, doesn't work, and just radiates negativity. Her parents spoiled her all her life, and now all she does nothing all day but gossip and post memes about people on her social media. I really didn't like her and tried my best to avoid speaking to her when she was around. Yeah, she doesn't sound too pleasant to me. Agatha tells me that Anna Maria is cheating on me with a guy I'm going to call Butch. She said Butch is the son of an attorney who does work for Anna Maria's father. She said Anna Maria's father set her up with him, and Anna Maria has been dating him for several weeks behind my back. Based on Agatha's reputation, I was doubtful of her words and told her I didn't believe her. She told me it was true, and I could see for myself if I went over to his apartment right now. She said I'd see Anna Maria's car there, and that would prove it. She gave me the address, and we ended our conversation. After thinking about what she said for a while, I eventually took a ride over that way to investigate. There I found Anna Maria's car parked in the lot of this apartment complex, just like Agatha said. However, this didn't prove anything. For all I knew, she could have been visiting a friend or something. As I drove around the parking lot, I heard loud noises coming from the pool area of the complex. Now, when I first read through this, I'm thinking he heard loud noises, he's going to walk over there and see these two in action, but that didn't happen. He says a pool party was going on and it was busy with people all over the place. To get a closer look, I parked my car and walked up a small hill behind some pine trees to get a view of the pool. I scanned the crowd but didn't notice anything at first. Then I spotted Anna Maria lying on a lounger chair beside a guy I presumed was Butch. When I saw her, my heart sank. I watched them for a while as they interacted with each other. They were both laying face down on chairs beside each other, talking back and forth. I then see Butch reach his hand out to Anna Maria, and she extends her hand to him, but they weren't close enough to touch. They start laughing as they are stretching to reach one another, acting like they are going to fall off their chairs. Then the next thing I see is Anna Maria jumping up from her chair and going over and laying beside this Butch on his chair with her back to him and her butt pressed up against his private area. I then watch as he starts kissing her neck and shoulders. Then she turns to look up at him and he kisses her right on the lips. He's probably been kissing her in a lot of other places as well, my friend. That was it for me, and I got out of there. I couldn't take watching another second of it. I didn't even think about confronting them. When I saw this, I was done. Good for you, that's how you should have responded. She was not the woman I thought she was. This was the worst thing anyone had done to me in my life, and I'll admit I cried on my way home from that place. Well, no one can blame you for that because that was the woman you were going to marry, and you cried in private. You didn't cry in front of her. That's okay. How could she do this to me after I did so much for her and put up with so much from her father? Well, that last part of that statement I think is key here. She probably saw that you're not standing up to her father, so she probably viewed you as weak. And you know what happens with women when they view weakness in a man. I didn't call her that night or the following day as I thought about how best to break up with her. I felt terrible that first night, but felt better the following morning after getting a good night's sleep. Anna Maria finally sent me a text around 11:30 Sunday morning saying she loved me and wanted to know what time I was coming to pick her up. I was so angry I didn't bother to respond. The texts and calls continued from her for the rest of the day, as I think she knew at that point something was very wrong. After letting her worry for hours, I finally answered one of her calls, and before she could say a word, I told her I knew all about Butch. She asked how I knew about him, and I told her someone who knows Butch told me. After this, she tried acting innocent, saying he was just a family friend, and that she viewed him like an older cousin. That's how you act with cousins? Wow. She kept the lies coming, saying they were just friends and have known each other since they were kids. I told her that was a lie, as I saw her kissing and rubbing on him at the pool. When she heard this, she went silent. I waited a few seconds for her to respond, and when she didn't, I told her I was breaking up with her. And that's the right thing to do, my man. Don't waste time. Don't get into a conversation with her. You just tell her, we are done. It's over. And now we're at a point in this story where I want to remind you, if you like what you've heard so far, be sure to hit that like button. That will help out the channel tremendously and also help get this video seen across the planet. Now let's go on with this story. After I said this, she went crazy and began crying. She said it was just a date and she wasn't serious about him. She said she did it to make sure she loved me before we settled down. Listen, guys, if a woman ever tells you that, don't ever believe it, because there is no kind of situation where that makes any sense. As she kept speaking these lies, I kept telling her, no, I don't believe you and I don't care anymore. Butch can have you. She said she didn't want Butch, she wanted me. She then said she went out on these dates with Butch because of her dad. She said her dad had been coaxing her to go out with him, so she did it to appease him. I told her I didn't care why she did it. She did it, and oh, by the way, your dad can go F himself. I hung up on her after this, as she was really starting to peel my bark. She kept calling me and leaving teary-eyed messages and texts all through Sunday night and into Monday morning. She said I was the man she wanted to marry, and if I'd come and pick her up now, we could elope and get married. So before, she didn't want to elope because she didn't want to disrespect her father, but now that she thinks the OP is going to leave her, oh, let's go elope, I want to hold on to you. I wasn't having it and went to work on Monday to take my mind off things. Late in the day on Monday, I got a call from an unknown number and I answered it. It was Anna Maria's father. He starts off apologizing for being such an ass to me. He said he did it because he really liked me and wanted to see how I handled pressure. He said it was some sort of test and I passed with bright colors. The whole time he was talking, I was thinking, yeah, right, old man. I don't believe a word you're saying. He kept going on telling me Anna Maria really loves me and it was his fault she went on the date with Butch and all this kind of thing. He said Anna Maria was very depressed and wasn't talking to him over this. Well, that's too bad. That's your problem, Pops. I politely listened to what he had to say, and when he finished, I told him to go F himself and disconnected. You should have done that early on when he started disrespecting you, but I give you credit for doing it now. He kept trying to call me back on his cell phone, so I blocked the number. For the rest of the day, I had numerous missed calls from unknown numbers and suspected they were either from Anna Maria or her father. In the weeks that followed, they both tried to contact me multiple times, and so did her mother, but I didn't answer. The three of them also showed up at my door on 3 separate occasions, but I didn't open up. Eventually, I guess they gave up when they realized I didn't want anything to do with them. I was really mad at myself for letting these miserable people waste nearly a year and a half of my life. There were times I missed her and thought about all the good times we had, but then I'd think about her in this Butch character and it made me sick and I'd get angry again. A month or so went by and out of the blue I get a call from Hagatha. This time she tells me that Anna Maria is pregnant and she's been telling everyone that I'm the baby's father. This was not possible as I always wore protection. I told Hagatha that unless I got a faulty batch of Trojans, there's no way I was the father. I told her she had my permission to tell everyone in the family this, so they all knew Anna Maria was lying. I told her to tell them I would be willing to take a paternity test right now to prove it. I then said if I hear that my name is being used in a negative way, I will sue Anna Maria and her father over this. I told her to tell them they should take my name out of their vocabulary if they know what's good for them. I never heard anything more about this. Apparently my girl Hagatha must have told them what I said, and they didn't even try to go there with me. Months went by and I was getting on with my life when I heard through the gossip mill that Butch had cut contact with Anna Maria and moved to a different state. So no surprise there, Chad is leaving the scene when things start to get heavy. This person also let me know that Butch's father was no longer Anna Maria's dad's attorney. Her dad was apparently so mad about what Butch did, he dropped the attorney and has filed some sort of lawsuit against both Butch and his father. So Butch's dad is probably a slimeball too. It probably runs in the family. Anna Maria eventually had her baby and continues to live with her parents to this day. Well, as a single mom, she might be living there for a long time. Her baby was born with some physical problems and she has had a tough time of it for the first couple years of his life. I have sympathy for the family over this and hope the boy will be fine, which I'm told he should be now after having multiple surgeries to fix his problems. Several weeks ago, I ran into Anna Maria's father coming out of Tractor Supply. I was hoping he didn't notice me, but he did and walked straight over to me. I thought about walking right past him without saying a word, but instead I decided to stop and let him say what he had to say. He greeted me like a long-lost friend, saying it was great to see me and asked how I was doing. Can you imagine this guy, the nerve of him doing that after the way he treated this OP? I told him I was fine and didn't say anything else. He took a second and cleared his throat and seemed to be getting choked up. He told me he was very sorry for how everything turned out between Anna Maria and me. He said he feels responsible for everything that happened and wished he could go back and do things over. I didn't say anything and just looked at him as he spoke. He asked what I was doing now and I told him I was a labor manager for my company. He told me congratulations and said he knew I'd achieved great things in my life. You see how this guy's laying it on thick with him now? Don't buy it, my man. Don't buy it. I thanked him for the compliment and told him I had to go. He shook my hand and we parted ways and that was that. Then a week ago Tuesday, he left me a voicemail. I still had his cell phone number blocked, but he called me from another number I didn't recognize. In his message, he said he had a business proposal to discuss with me and asked if I'd be willing to meet with him. I ignored his message as I wasn't interested in talking to him. Then on Thursday, he called again and left the same message. I called back and told him I wouldn't meet with him in person but would be willing to listen to what he had to say over the phone. He said he'd really like to do this in person and I told him no, explaining I wasn't interested in meeting with him. He said he understood, then told me the purpose for his call. He said he'd been thinking about passing on his business someday and wants to pass it along to someone who will run it like he does. Someone with integrity, who has good work ethic and good principles. He said the only person he knows like that is me, and he wanted to offer me an equity stake in his company and an executive position. I was surprised by his words, but I knew why he was doing this. I told him, "Sir, I thank you for your offer. I am not interested." I told him I knew why he was really doing this and made it clear I would not be getting back together with Anna Maria under any circumstances. So this father now is desperate, as you can see. He was responsible for chasing off this guy and setting her up with this other guy who ends up getting her pregnant and then leaving the scene. And now he realizes, hey, my daughter and my grandbaby are going to be living with me probably for a long, long time, and I'm going to be supporting them if I don't get her married off to someone soon. He told me his offer was not contingent on that. He said I was the best person for the job, and that's the only reason he contacted me. Yeah, of all the people in the world, he chooses this guy, a guy he treated like shit not too long ago. I told him, "No, sir, I know why you are doing this, and I am not interested." After this, he told me I should forgive Anna Maria, saying it was all his fault she started dating Butch and wants nothing to do with him now. I told him Anna Maria is a grown woman and was a grown woman back then too. No one pressured her to do anything she didn't want to do. I told him I was aware of the situation with Anna Maria and her child, and I wish them all the best, but my life is my own, and I do not want to be part of his family or his business. He told me Anna Maria blames him for her situation, and he feels terrible about it. I told him I understand his situation and wish he and his family well, but their lives no longer involve me. He was very disappointed, and I thought at one point he was going to cry. He told me he understood and hoped one day I could forgive his daughter for what happened. I didn't directly respond to that and instead just thanked him for the call and told him I had to go. Before hanging up, he said if I ever changed my mind, the offer was open. I said thank you, sir, and ended the call. This all happened just the other day, so it's all fresh in my mind right now. Even though I don't like that man, I do have sympathy for his situation. That's because you're Mr. Nice Guy. He had no sympathy for you. Sometimes people don't come to their senses until it's too late, and for him, it was too late. I wish Anna Maria and her father find peace and live happy lives, but it's not something I'm going to fret over as it doesn't involve me. For now, I've got my hands full with my job and have put plans for marriage and children on the back burner for now. I'm not dating anyone presently, but I'm keeping my eyes open in case a good woman crosses my path again. And that's the end of his story. And as I talked about in this story, up front, this guy didn't handle the situation appropriately. As soon as he started to get disrespect from this father, he should have called him out on it and took him to task. He didn't do that, so what happened is the father kept ratcheting up the pressure on him and disrespecting him even more, which made him look weak to his girlfriend, Anna Maria. Now, that's not excusing what she did at all, because she's a cheater and he doesn't want any part of her, but I'm sure she probably looked at him as being weak. But I gotta hand it to him. Once he found out she was cheating and he saw it firsthand with his own eyes, he dropped her like a hot rock. And that's how you handle those situations. And what this guy needs to do now is focus on his career. It sounds like he's doing very well in the construction business. That's a business, as you all know right now, that is booming. So the future looks bright for this guy. He's a young guy. Sounds like he's got a good head on his shoulders. The only thing he has to do is get out of that nice guy mode. Be focused more on himself instead of focusing on everyone else's feelings and trying to pacify everyone else. And now I want to go over what I think are the morals of the story. The first one, beware of women who have problematic relationships with their parents. In this case, it was with the father, so we have daddy issues. Those kind of situations never turn out well. How many stories have we gone through where there's been daddy issues or the mom was a problem and it translated to the girlfriend or the wife? So what I'm saying there is beware. Next, never let anyone disrespect you. If someone disrespects you, it's because you're allowing them to disrespect you. And related to that, There is a dignity of work. And what I mean by that is your stature is not determined by how much money you make. Everyone who does good work serves a key role in society. With me, I view someone who's a custodian who does a good job in the same light that I view the CEO of the company. I do not separate them and say, oh, you know what, the CEO is better because he's making $1 million and this guy's only making 50,000. No, I don't see it that way, and no one should see it that way. That's what I'm talking about when I say the dignity of work. Anyone who does a good job and works their ass off, they've got my total respect. Next, never ignore red flags. And this guy did it. He said, oh, you know, I saw this was happening, but I didn't want to call her on it because she was dealing with all this pressure from her father and trying to balance the relationship with me and with her parents. No, when you've got red flags waving, that's an indication that something's going on. Next, make improving yourself your top priority, especially when you're young, but even when you're older. Always make sure you're taking care of yourself mentally, physically, and financially. Most people don't. They put everyone else first and then they put themselves last, and you can't do that. And finally, karma is a bitch. What goes around comes around. Now you see this father who was talking down to this guy that was dating his daughter, this hardworking young man that was trying to get started in life. He's talking down to him like he's garbage, then ends up coming back on his hands and knees trying to beg him. So he experienced the ultimate karma. And those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Has something like this ever happened to you? And if it did, how did you handle the situation? Tell us about it in the comments. Also be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. And I will talk to you